Welcome to the Human Reboot with me, Emma Last. We have uplifting, inspiring, and diverse reboot stories from people sharing the courageous, honest, authentic, and sometimes difficult life lessons. The Human Reboot will provide proven mentally flourishing formulas and practical tips to help you to live life to the full, giving you direction and hope. Make your mental fitness and well-being a daily priority. Learn to pause so that you can get clear and perform at your best. Switch off to switch on. It's time for your Human Reboot. On the Human Reboot podcast today, I have Valerie Fischer. She has over 20 years experience in advertising and marketing and co-founded an e-commerce site for locally made products in 2018. She was also a chief marketing officer in a real estate company in 2019. But along with other millions of people, she was let go during the pandemic. And she's really gone through a journey of self-discovery. And I'd love her to be able to share that with you today. She now helps online business owners and entrepreneurs to grow their revenue with brain, selling, science. Welcome, Valerie.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, because I know that this podcast has a global market. So I'm greeting you from Manila, Philippines.
Well, it's not quite yet in the Philippines, but hopefully will be after our conversation. So please, would you tell us a little bit about your current mission and what you're doing in your work right now?
Okay. I was in the corporate world for a really long time, for 20 years, which was really most of my professional and working life. And it was only in 2018, then another pivot in 2020 that I became an entrepreneur. And then I realized that I really want to help entrepreneurs like me, especially those that are a little bit older and, just starting to be an entrepreneur, because I believe that they are the change makers. They are the innovators. And the more help that they get, the better it is actually for the society in general. So given everything that I know from my corporate world, my stint in e-commerce, and then also what I'm doing now as a trainer and coach consultant, that's kind of become my mission. That's kind of become my advocacy to really help them in whatever way that I can. Because, I believe the new products, they come up with new products, they come up with new services and everything new that we as a society really benefit from. So I want to help more of them as much as I can.
And both occasions that I've spoken to Valerie, she has the most amazing earrings, which are, she does. Well, you do. They are gorgeous. I am extremely jealous. They're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful, and they're just really different. And there's one of my friends would have loved them. I said that last time, didn't I? And I think I'd like some of them too. So I need to get myself on that site and get myself ordering some of those earrings. So if anyone sees me on videos in a few weeks' time, I'll be having some of Valerie's earrings on. So let's move on. We are on the Human Reboot podcast. So let's move on and start to talk about Valerie's reboot story.
So last year, it was at the start of the pandemic when I lost my job. When you receive a message on text that says, we need to talk, that kind of, that means something. Whether it comes from your boyfriend, from your parent, and this time it came from my boss. And I knew something was up. We were not seeing eye to eye in how we wanted to move the business forward. Because I really truly believed in digital. I really truly believed that, we don't have to go outside. We have to follow protocols. Because this was at the time that there was a lockdown. It was a worldwide lockdown. But she was like, no, we need to work outside. You guys need to go and sell. You guys need to, knock on doors of your brokers, etc. And I'm like, no. We can actually sell online. We can sell digitally. So we were not really seeing eye to eye on that. So when she messaged me that, I knew what was up. But it was mutual. She fired me. I quit. That was April. That was April 4. Of course, I was embarrassed. My ego was hit. I worked for that. I mean, I worked towards getting that job ever since I became a professional. When I was 20 years old, I was in advertising, I was in marketing, and the whole time I was really aiming for a position like that, as a chief marketing officer. And I was already there. That was my dream, or at least I thought what my dream was. And I lost it at the start of the pandemic. I wanted to hide. I wanted to deactivate my Facebook. I was like, what am I going to tell people? What if my dad gets sick? What if my sister gets sick? How am I going to help them? How am I going to help myself if I don't have a job, if I don't have money? And so all of these things really, and it was a pandemic, everything was so uncertain, and I was scared. I was embarrassed, but because I have neuro-linguistic programming background, I allowed myself to feel. I allowed myself to feel all of those. And then, I was in hiding, but people started messaging me, my friends, former colleagues, family members, asking for help about how are they going to transition online, because they know I have an e-commerce site, I have marketing background, I have advertising background. They know that I know digital selling. And I actually just responded to their call. And I did not realize that was actually the self-discovery part, that, oh, my value was not in the title of chief marketing officer. My value was in those people who wanted my help. They thought of me as something else. They thought of me as someone who can help them. You know what I mean? So that actually, when I realized that, I'm like, who am I to say no to these people who need my help? And so I wiped my tears. I stood back up and I wore that. I say it like it's a superhero costume waiting for me to put on. And I did. That was my self-discovery. I didn't know I was capable of that. I didn't know that was how people saw me, as somebody to give advice, somebody to give to help them. So and the rest was history. The rest was history. Ever since then, I've discovered so many more things, about so much more about me that I didn't know, because the whole time my brain was programmed to be a chief marketing officer. But when that was taken away from me, it was actually that rejection was a redirection. The universe, God, whatever supreme being you believe in, it was leading me to where I'm supposed to be. And all I had to do was really follow and embrace whatever path I was given.
So I find this really interesting. That part really resonates with me. So who was Valerie in the corporate world, and who is Valerie now?
Well, there's a common thread. Valerie in the corporate world and Valerie now, I'm still an achiever. I'm still but in the corporate world, I was a tiger. I was a panther. I was like, brr, you do this, you follow me. I was really more, how do I say, aggressive. But right now, I think I've mellowed. I've been humbled. I've been humbled by the experience. I am still being humbled by the entrepreneurial journey, by this journey. So I think I'm calmer, and I'm how do I say, I'm more of a mentor really now. In the corporate world, I was a leader, always been. I think I've always been a leader, but I did not really spend time mentoring. Whereas now I've stepped into that role of a mentor for a lot of people, which was very interesting for me, because one of the books that I read back in 2015 or 2016, it came with an assessment. It's the Gallup Strengthsfinder.
I love Strengthsfinder. Yeah.
Yes. In there, And in there, it said that I'm a learner. So I'm a learner, input, relator, achiever, and focus. So those are my 5 strengths. And it said there, because learner and input are my really, really strong, really strong traits. And it said there that I should be a teacher, that I should be a mentor, I should be a coach. It was in 2015. I was recently promoted in as an assistant vice president in a former company, and I'm like, what is this book talking about? I'm not a teacher. I'm not a mentor. How can I be? I'm not that. I'm in the corporate world. I'm this. I'm that. And then I find myself a mentor and a teacher, like what that assessment said. And again, it was, part of the self-discovery. It was opening myself up to other possibilities. Because we never really know. We never really know. I thought that was my path. As early as I was 7 years old, I knew where I wanted to go to school. I knew that I wanted to join a sorority. I knew that I wanted to do this, to do that. And by the time I was I think I was 38 or 39 when I reached, the peak of my career. But that wasn't it. It really wasn't that. It really wasn't that. So yeah, I'm calmer. I'm humbled by my everyday journey as an entrepreneur. And I'm really more of a mentor now. But I take with me all the experience from the corporate world, the discipline, account management, the way that I handle clients, because I used to be a client myself. So I have that. I take that with me when I handle and manage my own clients now.
Interesting. It's almost like in that period of time, you've just kind of paused and listened to those strengths that were there, but, you perhaps weren't kind of, you weren't listening to them, for that period of time. I absolutely love Strengthsfinder. I think it was, I'm trying to think back it probably was 10 years ago, nearly 10 years ago that I first came across Strengthsfinder. And it was something that actually my husband was using. He works for Marks and Spencer's, and it was actually something they were using in some management development type work that they were doing. And I was like, right, let me have a look at this. What is this book that they're doing? I must have a look. And I did it on myself, and I thought, oh, this is really good. I love this. And I'd always had this thing in my mind about, so in the corporate world, it was, you would review people against set objectives. And it was always like, you've achieved these, but these are your development areas. So these are the gaps. It was like, always focus on the gaps. And in some ways, that to me was a bit like, yeah, I know we've got to focus on the gaps, but in essence, we're talking negatively to people. What about focusing on their strength? When I read Strengthsfinder, it was like, someone gets what I've had in my head. And it was, find your strength, because when you know your strengths and you focus on those strengths, the areas of development that you may have will elevate anyway, because your performance is increasing, your drive is increasing, your engagement is increasing. So therefore, you're going to want to work on those areas rather than focusing on all the weaknesses in essence. It was something that we did do quite a lot of work on, and I did a lot of work on with my teams around that time. So it's kind of reminded me that we have a finding your strengths part in the human reboot movement. So maybe I just need to bring Strengthsfinder into that little module as well. So thanks for that, Valerie, because I talk about it.
We also use that. So in my first business, the e-commerce site. So there's 3 of us. And before we even signed our agreement to be partners, like our corporation papers, we matched our strengths. We matched our strengths. And then we identified where we lack. And that's where we hired.
Yeah.
All of us 3, we were achievers. We really wanted this to work. But we lacked a person that will implement. So the first lady that we hired was really, to implement. But I was, for a really long time, I didn't realize the importance of that assessment. At the back of my head, I was always questioning, why am I meant to be a teacher? Why is that my ideal job? I'm not a teacher. I wasn't born to be. I wasn't trained to be a teacher. Well, apparently I am.
Yeah, I didn't want to be a teacher, but there's lots of different teachers, isn't there, in this world? Lots of different mentors. There's trainers, mentors, and there are teachers in the classroom. So yeah, definitely. So how have you got from where you were kind of at that time to where you are now?
I think that the shift was immediate because I was powered by people's belief in me. I talk about personal brand a lot. I was powered by that because, I didn't need to sell myself. I didn't need to do all of those, sales calls, discovery calls. They just kept on coming. So the change, the pivot was immediate, and it was exponential. I was surprised. Even I still am surprised by the amount of support that I get. And that's what I try to give back. I also realized that, during this whole process from that time until now, that the more I give, the more I am given back. That's learning that, I take with me. Because when I was starting this business, when people called me for help, I was giving free training for coaching groups, free training for local makers, because I knew a lot of, our partners for the earrings, for the home stuff, for the lifestyle items, and they were asking me for help. So I was giving them free trainings until one day, one of my friends said, "Do you know a trainer speaker who can do, one for 250 packs, 250 people?" I'm like, you know what? I can do it for you. I can do it for you. Why not? Why not me? And he said, "Okay, let's do it." That was a Monday. We did the training on Thursday. By the following Monday, I had a second client and a third client and a fourth client and the fifth. Because I think, and this is what I believe, because I just gave. I just gave from the beginning. This is the same with how I manage my Facebook group, my Facebook account, the trainings. I give free trainings, videos, posts, PDF, etc. Because I believe it will really come back to us 100-fold.
Lovely. Okay, so the next part of the Human Reboot podcast is all about how you switch off so that you can switch on and perform at your best. So tell me about how you do that.
With difficulty. With difficulty. Ever since when I was in the corporate world, I used to manage international events, and my husband would see me in the middle of the night under the covers on my phone managing events from on the other side of the world. So I'm in the Philippines, and then I'm managing events in the US, in the UK, etc. I can't stop. It's challenging. It's really challenging for me to stop. So what I think helps for me is identifying priorities. So right now, especially since I'm a solopreneur, I just prioritize these things, and then by 3 or 4 o'clock, for example, this is ideal. 3 or 4 o'clock, I stop, like it's a hard stop, and then I start making dinner. I kind of in my head switch at 4 o'clock. I'm a wife. I'm a housewife. I start delineating now, and then until 8 o'clock. And also I found this is funny. I'm a little bit embarrassed, but I started watching Korean TV drama. So that's how I kind of switch on now to discipline myself. I tell myself, okay, you have to stop working so you can watch your favorite show. That's my motivation now, because if I don't, I will continue. I will just continue working.
Yeah.
So that's it's a struggle. I know that it's a challenge for me. I've been working on it. I finding ways on how I can do that. This hard stop, I used to also do a hard stop, but this time for yoga or for walks. I go for a walk. I also do so every Tuesday and Friday. I'm also able to do a hard stop because I feed our community cats. I'm one of the volunteers. So I'm like, okay, by this time, if you don't stop, the cats will starve. So it's
So where I find this really interesting because you've talked on a number of occasions through the podcast about being a high achiever. And that is, that's the purpose of this podcast, really. This podcast is for high achievers. I am a high achiever. I was a high achiever in the corporate world, but I got to a point where I burnt out because I didn't look after myself. So where do you think that drive for high achievement comes from?
I grew up poor. We grew up poor. And ever since I started studying, I knew I had to be a valedictorian to get scholarship. Because if I did not reach that level, my parents have to pay full tuition. And we didn't have that money. So it was programmed in my head, in myself. I programmed it within myself that I have to be the number one all the time, because if not, I will not be able to afford things. So that's, I think, how all of these started. So for example, right now, subconsciously, I'm thinking, if I stop working, I will not be able to afford this lifestyle. If I stop and rest, I will not be able to afford that dream that we have, like a house in the mountain. That's, and I'm conscious. I'm aware of these thoughts and this programming. That's why I manage it. Because being a high achiever led me here, and being a high achiever let me pivot so fast. Being a high achiever, from a poor community in the northern part of Manila to a high rise here in a, commercial, and really, it's like New York here, they say.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm thankful that I am like that. It's just that I know I have to also take care of myself.
It's really interesting because one of the first things that we do within the Human Reboot Movement program, one of the things that we do explore is around our fears around stopping. And you've just mentioned that, if I stop, then, I won't be able to achieve what I want to achieve. If I stop, I won't be able to, I need money to be able to pay for things. Are there any other fears or reasons you think that you perhaps don't pause as much as you would sometimes like to?
Acceptance also. Because when I was younger, again, it goes back to childhood, and I'm aware because of my, my NLP background, I was bullied as a child because, I have darker skin, I have curly hair. I don't look like the other kids, as, if I want, let's just put it that way. I don't look like the other kids, darker. So because I was a valedictorian, because I was a high achiever, they can't touch me because the teachers will see, and then they will be reprimanded. But also, on the flip side of it, I was, for some kids, I actually became, more targeted because I was a high achiever, But I try to be there. I try to be that. So at least I tell myself I'm worth something. Physically, I was programmed to think that I was not pretty, I was not, beautiful, I wasn't accepted. At least I'm something. At least I'm a high achiever. At least I'm a valedictorian. So that's another fear I think that I have.
It's your brain's way of protecting you, isn't it? In
Yes.
essence. Yeah, it's your brain's way of protecting you. It's something that's been in there for a very long time. It's very much a learned thing. Yes. I would just ask you to just just keep reviewing that sort of each week, each month, because we do not want a burnt out Valerie. So I'm glad that you've got some things that you have in place to help you with that.
Yeah, we also have a property. So we bought property outside of Metro Manila, outside of the city. And that's where I really turn off. I garden. We have 6 dogs. We have rescue horses. We have birds everywhere. So that's where I turn off. I still have my phone, but only as a camera. But I don't, answer messages, etc. That's every 2 weeks. So that's I think personally, that's how I reboot. Yeah. I'm a different person. I'm a different person there. I work with my hands. I'm barefoot. I have my hair up. I don't care if I get dirty. I don't care if I'm under the sun. It's just, I'm a totally different person there.
Fabulous. It sounds as well that you've got a real have you got a real passion for helping animals?
Yes. If I had my way, that property will be turned into a shelter.
What does your husband think of that?
We have to earn more. We don't have. We can't take in all the rescues without budget.
Yeah.
We have right now here in our apartment we have 4. There we have 4 cats. So 4 cats here, 4 cats there, 6 dogs and 2 horses. Both horses were rescues. One gave birth because when actually we rescued her one of the horses from a slaughterhouse in the pandemic because the owner, didn't have money. So we were like, no, she's pregnant. So she gave birth in January. So now we have 3 horses.
Very good. What is your personal flourishing formula for living? So that could be some key learns, a mantra, some mental fitness tips, any how-to tips that you could perhaps share with our listeners.
To live in authenticity. I believe that because it takes so much energy to be pretentious, I think. So when you live in, it took me a long time to get here, to be as authentic as I can. I told you earlier about people making fun of me because I had curly hair. So for a long time I really did all those rebond, Brazilian, whatever, all those things to my hair. In 2018, I'm like, I don't care. This is me. Take it or leave it. And in 2018, that was when I started my first business, and then eventually it led me here. It's the acceptance of who I really am. And I think that when that happens to you, so many more doors that are really meant for you will open. Your path will open.
Yeah.
The things that are meant for you will show themselves. It's because you're more open to them, and you're more accepting, I guess. So that's one. Live life in authenticity. And I also believe that this is hard to do. I posted about it on my Facebook page the other day. Comparison is so crushing. Try not to compare myself. It's hard. It's very hard. But when you meditate and you just be in gratitude and feel the abundance, everything that is given to you, then you realize you have so much more than you think. So I think that those 2 are my mantras. Live in authenticity and don't compare. It's hard. It's a tough order. It's a tough order, but it's, I think that we should really learn because it's so crushing. It's so hard.
Yeah, definitely. I have a good friend that says that it's like a virus that can take over you.
Yes, it ruins friendships, it ruins relationships, destroys your work, destroys your dreams.
Yeah, and the only person you should compare yourself to is yourself.
Yep. Yes.
So are there any books? I know we've already talked about Strengthsfinder, but are there any books that or podcasts or influencers or people in your life that have had an impact on your journey, would you say?
Definitely the Strengthsfinder. Another one is Start With Why. I read those two books, I think within 3 months of each other. And that's when I started questioning. In 2015 and 2016, I'm like, okay, I have almost everything that I want. I'm one of the youngest executives. I have transferred to a really good neighborhood. I met the man of my dreams. Why am I asking the universe what else is out there? When I read Start With Why, there was really something missing. There really was something missing. And when I read Start With Why, he has a formula to get your why. It took me 2 years, and I'm not kidding. It took me 2 years to do that formula. But when I did, I realized that everything that I've been doing in the past and now I use it to guide me. So it's to inspire courage to create change. So that is how I live my life now. Inspire courage. That's why I want to really help new entrepreneurs, to start, to build momentum, to scale, hold their hand and guide them. So to inspire courage and then to create change.
Yeah. I think the words he puts it in is something like how great leaders inspire action, isn't it? And it's really interesting that you said that you read that we read those two books in a similar time. So did I, but a different. How weird is that? Yeah, I did as well. Yeah, probably I might not have been within 3 months of each other, but it was definitely around that same time. Really interesting. But I was coming at it from more of a company perspective, if that makes sense. So Starting With Why was all about, how, for me, it was like, how do I get the people within this organization to buy in to the purpose that I believe in within this organization, and how do we as a leadership team, how do we make that happen? And it was a massive piece of work. I absolutely loved it. I loved doing that. And actually I still help businesses now do that in terms of making that connection between the business's purpose and an individual, helping them find their why and how their why can connect to that business purpose as well. So, because for me, people say to me, well, you're in the mental health and well-being space, aren't you? And it's like, well, yeah, but actually purpose is a massive part of well-being. It's a massive part of actually helping people to, be happy and to perform at their best.
When you know your purpose, then you reserve your energy to the things that really matter to you.
And on that note, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story and to do this podcast. I think a lot of people will resonate with that high achiever part and that whole fear around stopping and I know that was something that I found very difficult, and I still work on that now. And I say to my clients, I'm not perfect, but it's that awareness, isn't it? It's that self-awareness is a great place to start, like you said.
Yeah, so thank you very much for having me. Thank you. And I hope, that I am able to, like my why, to inspire courage, to create change in your lives.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Human Reboot podcast. I'm Emma Last, and if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave me a 5-star podcast review and visit thehumanrebootmovement.com, where you can find downloadable free resources, sign up to my mailing list, or connect with me on social. So that's thehumanrebootmovement.com. Let's switch off so we can switch on. It's time for your human reboot.